discussed here. It's next on Netflix. Interesting interviews. What's coming soon? It's next on Netflix. Reviews and news. Netflix and chill. It's next on Netflix. Binge-worthy streams. We've got it all. It's next on Netflix.
What's up, Netflix addicts and binge watchers? I'm your host, Matt, and welcome back to Next on Netflix. This is, of course, the unofficial weekly Netflix podcast, where every 2 weeks we discuss the main new releases coming to Netflix, as well as the latest news. In between these episodes, as per our intro, we'll interview special guests, do reviews, preview episodes in more detail, dive into facts, and much more. This is in fact a special bonus episode that I didn't plan on doing or releasing. I actually decided to put it together and record it spur of the moment. So this isn't the episode that I did tease at the end of episode 3. That will be coming later this week, likely over the weekend. As always, I hope all my listeners are doing well and you had a cracking Valentine's Day. I just wanted to delve into, in this episode, Behind Her Eyes in more detail, starting with what it's about. Let's get into it. I touched on it briefly in our last episode, of course, but for those that missed it or want to recap, Behind Her Eyes is a 6-part mystery thriller series with a finite ending, with all 6 one-hour-long episodes premiering on the 17th, which is Wednesday. Going into a bit more detail now, it follows the story of Louise Barnsley, played by Simona Brown, who's known for Man Up, The Night Manager and Kiss Me First. Louise is a young, single mum whose otherwise uneventful life is plagued by night terrors. She gets romantically involved with her handsome, mysterious boss, David Ferguson, who's a psychiatrist and is played by Tom Bateman, who you might recall from Murder on the Orient Express, Snatched and Cold Pursuit, to name but a few. Anyway, her romantic involvement with David sees things take a turn, as he is actually married to the beautiful and seemingly perfect Adele, who is played by Eve Hewson, who recently played the part of Marion in the 2018 Robin Hood movie, which was actually pretty decent. I quite enjoyed it. She starred alongside Taron Egerton, of course, from Kingsman. Eve is also featured in Bridge of Spies, Blood Ties, and more. Anyway, Louise bumps into Adele by chance, and the two begin to form a secret friendship and bond due to Adele also having a history with night terrors. Adele, however, has already learnt to control hers through the art of lucid dreaming, which, if you don't know, is the ability to control your dreams. Something that I find really, really fascinating and have actually looked into in the past. So Adele wants to teach Louise to be able to lucid dream, to do the same. And she can do that using some instructions from an old journal that's written by one of Adele's old trouble friends of the past, Rob. Louise begins reading through the journal, growing closer to the lonely and isolated Adele in the process, while also learning more about her complicated marriage with David and turbulent history that's filled with trauma and loss. She also discovers more about the friendship Adele and Rob had. They were once very close during their stay at a psychiatric hospital, but Rob is mysteriously absent. Adele had also taught Rob how to lucid dream, and from here on in the story, the love triangle and web of lies unravels, exposing secrets with the help of the supernatural. Of course, those that have read the book to Behind Her Eyes, which this Netflix original series is based off of, will know the story and will of course know that there's a huge twist at the end. Next up, I just want to touch on the book in a bit more detail. So the actual novel was published back in 2017 by HarperCollins Publishers and Flatiron Books, and it was written by New York Times best-selling and Sunday Times #1 best-selling author Sarah Pinborough. Novelist Ian Rankin said on Twitter after the book was released, "Pile driver domestic thriller with pull the rug out ending." If you haven't read the book and Rankin's comments don't give an indicator as to how shocking the ending is, then following its release, the hashtag WTF that ending was pretty damn popular on Twitter. People were incredibly divided over it though. Some loved it for pushing the boundaries and others absolutely hated it, dubbing it outlandish. There's already lots of spoilers for this, so do not look too much into it if you don't want to spoil it for yourself. But I do know there's lots of you out there that can't help yourself with spoilers. The idea for the book is quite interesting. It actually came to the author Sarah when she'd been reading a lot of psychological thrillers and wanted to write one herself. She had a huge opportunity to pitch an idea and had a terrible week at the time. So she had 5 days to actually come up with something, but had absolutely nothing. However, upon going to the pub, she took her notebook out and wanted to write about the toxic and obsessive nature of affairs with something different in it. She then questioned herself and asked what was really important to her in her world. The answer was dreaming, and this was largely due to being scared of the dark as a child and being better at things in her dreams than in reality, which is something that really resonates with me myself as well, and probably does so with many of our listeners. So then Sarah started writing the novel about dreaming as well, and incorporating this idea of course, controlling dreams through lucid dreaming. I think that's an absolutely bloody brilliant story of how she came up with the idea. Going to the pub, she had an awful week, no ideas, 5 days to come up with something, going to the pub, glass of wine, and ta-da, almost one of them eureka moments, isn't it? Fantastic. Sarah was also asked during an interview if it was a simple yes for her when Netflix picked the show up, and here's what she said. Back then there were big psychological thrillers being turned into films. Gone Girl, Girl on the Train, so we all wanted it to be a film. We had lots of people interested, and I had just got back from a book tour in the USA and was told that Left Bank wanted it for a TV series. I went to the meeting even though I wanted it to be a film, and they were so slick there was no hesitation afterwards when it came to saying yes. More importantly, they really got the book. They didn't want to change anything, they liked the characters, they weren't worried about the ending, which was a big deal for me. They tried some UK broadcasters and got some kickback on elements of it, so when Netflix happened, it was the perfect storm. The minute they said they were pairing with Netflix, I got a very good vibe. They have a great working relationship. Then they brought Steve Lightfoot on board to write the script. Just to move away quickly from Sarah's comments, for those that don't know, Steve Lightfoot is the guy behind Hannibal. Sarah continued, I love Hannibal, so I thought he would really understand this. I have felt included in the whole process, which is nice because once they optioned it, it has nothing to do with me really. I, for one, am really glad it's a TV show because I prefer TV shows over movies mostly because, of course, you can get into the characters in much more detail. And this is 6 parts, so it's basically a 6-hour movie, almost like a trilogy. Okay, to finish off, we're going to take a look at the cast and characters of Behind Her Eyes in more detail. Starting with Louise. Louise Barnsley is a young single mum who is warm and caring, a naturally truthful and honest person. As stated, she's played by the British actress Simona Brown, who trained at the Identity School of Acting in London. As well as the parts she's featured in prior to Behind Her Eyes that we mentioned earlier, Simona has played Tess in Kiss Me First, Faith in ITV drama Him, Rachel in The Little Drummer Girl, and Gail in Outlander. The part of Louise Barnsley, however, is her first time of playing a mum on screen, and to prepare for the role, she babysat her niece and nephew for 2 days straight. I can only begin to imagine how that must have been. During an interview with Netflix, Simona was asked how scary the nightmare scenes are, and replied, I don't think it's American Horror Story scary, but more unsettling and strange. I think it's quite dark to watch, but not disturbing. I didn't feel the need to sit down and contemplate my life afterwards. It was more like, that's a cool shot. I wouldn't sit down with an 8-year-old and watch it though. According to Simona, the adaptation does stay true to the book, but has been given its own spin by Steve Lightfoot. So that's really exciting news for people like me who haven't even read the book, and for fans of the book also. Now moving on to Adele. Adele Ferguson, once sweet and lively, is now lonely and isolated in her own marital home. She's desperate to make her once loving husband happy and subserviently accepts the little autonomy she's left with. Eve Hewson, who plays Adele, is quickly becoming one of the generation's brightest talents, most recently receiving rave reviews for her performance in The Luminaries, a miniseries that debuted on BBC One if you haven't seen it, and quickly actually became the channel's most watched new series at the time. On top of her appearances in Robin Hood and Bridge of Spies, which we've touched on, she played the lead in Rebecca Adelman's Paper Year, which follows a young newlywed couple as they encounter challenges in their first year of marriage. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any interview quote snippets or anything from Eve with regards to the show. So now on to David. David Ferguson is the handsome and mysterious psychiatrist who embarks on an affair with Louise. We get to see a different side to David throughout the series though, in some flashbacks, which show a gentle, kind and laid-back nature. He's now though burdened with guilt and is harbouring secrets. Ooh, sounds very interesting. He can't escape from the past. Tom Bateman, who is playing the part of David, will also reprise his role as Buke later this year in the upcoming adaptation of Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile, which is following on from the successful Murder on the Orient Express. On TV, Tom has appeared in the recent adaptation of the literary classic 1848 novel by William Makepeace Thackeray in Vanity Fair. He's also starred in ITV's Jekyll and Hyde, Gurinder Chadha's Beecham House, among others. Finally, he was awarded the 2018 Breakout Actor Award by GQ magazine. When asked why he took the role, Tom responded, "This role was a challenge that I got very excited about. Selfishly as an actor, when they offer you a role, you read it and go, oh, my bits are wonderful. And they were. At first I thought, bless him, he's just this normal guy. And then I thought, oh no, he's a monster. Then I thought, he's just this broken man with this incredible backstory. So for me, it became increasingly more interesting. I'm hopeful that we were able to get David into that place of really playing it down the line, so the audience will go, I hate that guy in one episode, and then in the next episode, bless him." Similarly to Simona, Tom was also asked about the nightmare scenes and how scary they'd be, as to which he responded, "I hope it is very scary, because it gives the piece a charge to it. There are things at stake, they're not just dreams, they mean something. Those scenes are as unpredictable and as scary as dreams are, and I hope we embrace the reality of the fact that dreams can be very scary places to be. I hope it is haunting. It is such a wonderful piece because the rest is so naturalistic. It's basically a love triangle and we know what that is. It is brilliantly done and could stand alone. But then on top of that, there is this Stranger Things nightmare parallel universe that haunts the whole piece. Everything is charged with danger and threat and unpredictability. I hope the audience doesn't ever feel relaxed." And man, by those comments, I sure as hell don't. And looking at the trailer, I also definitely didn't feel relaxed. Again, if you've not watched that trailer, go and watch it now before this hits Netflix on the 17th. It sounds so good and I can't wait for the show. While I love binge watching, you also can't beat a limited one-off series like this one that you can sit down and just binge in a day and get all of the answers to your questions and all that stuff immediately without, of course, having to wait for future seasons. I just hope I can avoid those spoilers. The series as well looks absolutely beautifully shot from the trailer. It starts off with Adele counting her fingers to control her dreams from a nightmare, and that music is just whew. Watch. So chilling. So that's about it, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed this slightly different episode, bonus episode, and an in-depth preview to Behind Her Eyes. I hope you've enjoyed it just as much as me, because I've bloody loved writing it and recording it. Thanks so much for listening once again, all you Netflix addicts and binge watchers out there. Be sure to stay tuned for our actual next episode, which again I can't disclose the details of yet. Subscribe if you enjoyed this episode and enjoying the podcast so far. Leave a review on iTunes because that really helps us out. And follow us on social media to stay tuned on Instagram and Twitter. If you did want to support the podcast, head to support.nextonnetflix.com to go to our Buy Me a Coffee page or go and buy some of our merch at shop.nextonnetflix.com. On one final note, remember this is the place to be for all things Netflix. Happy binge watching. Goodbye.
Catch you next time.